Because tax inconsistencies has been a problem with this current administration. Remember, they anchored their campaign promise on nuisance taxes.
Right.
So when they came in their first budget, they removed some taxes.
True.
Now, go back. The same year, they reviewed the budget, they brought in some taxes.
True.
Now, if you're a businessman and you are sitting down, you want to invest in our environment, will you be happy with this tax going
and coming
in and out and all? No, you don't know when next time. It's not predictable. Very, very unpredictable.
Hi, good morning and welcome to another edition of the Lowdown here on GhanaWeb TV. My name is Daniel Oduro. Today we'll have a conversation about the economy of Ghana. We'll do some economics, and today my guest is a professor in economics. We'll discuss the state of Ghana's economy 22 years after the country went to HIPC, which literally meant that a lot of its debts were cancelled. How are we in a situation where we are unable to pay our debts 22 years down the line? What has happened to our economy? Where did it all go wrong? Of course, later in the show, we'll also discuss the reshuffle by President Nana Akufo-Addo, specifically the finance ministry, the new minister and what he really has in store. Can he do any changes that would affect the fortunes of this country? My guest today is Professor Lord Mensah, and he's a professor at the University of Ghana Business School. He's also a visiting professor at the GhanaWeb Business School. He's joined us for this conversation. Prof, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
It's good to see you in person. I've seen you on TV and heard you on radio and all of that.
Good to see you too.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's start off with the reshuffle by the president. The finance ministry has been hot potato. A lot of people said the second term especially has been disappointing, especially with the finance minister. The economy and its state suggests that in any reasonable country should have lost his job long ago. Would you say that the reshuffle has come a bit too late in the day, and can the new minister change anything?
Yes, I'm normally a straight, bullet
right.
person. So I think the reshuffle has come a bit late.
Right.
A bit late in the sense that in your intro you mentioned that he was doing well in the first term. You should understand that half of the first term was under IMF.
Right. Okay.
And that was when we were chalking stability in our exchange rate, stability in the inflation. Inflation coming down.
Yeah.
Interest rate was also relatively low. Every economy that is depicting this kind of indicators is a good signal.
Right.
And at that point, the banks were building up, diverting lending to the private sector, which was a good thing because, the engine of growth for every economy is the private sector. And in the Ghanaian economy, the private sector constitutes about 90%. So if interest rates are low and the private sector can easily have access to funds, that's when they can create jobs and then growth. Open up for employment and other things. So the young ones who are finishing school can easily, get jobs. But then as if we're under pressure to move out of IMF.
Yeah, we actually held a celebration.
Yes, if you take your mind back, it was a system, and it's like we were conscientized that being without IMF is stressful for the country because it's not giving us the leeway to spend as expected, And so the program came to an end. And some of us even proposed that, looking at the way the indicators are performing, why don't we still hold on to the IMF program? Yeah. At least to keep us in check, one way or the other. But then we moved out of it. And when we moved out of it, we celebrated. Yes. At a point where we're with the IMF and, exiting, our budget deficit, if I say budget deficit, I mean, when you read a budget, how your expenditure exceeds, the difference between your expenditure and your revenue. It was around 6%. And the IMF was recommending 5% for us, which is a good thing. And 6% was almost close. Right. And that was actually what was bringing the indicators to the level where, that it was making the economy better. So we exited the IMF, and when we exited, that was 2019. You can go back into the data, the budget. I mean that the minister reads. It's on the website of Ministry of Finance. You will see that our budget deficit jumped to 11%.
Wow!
I mean, from 6% to 11%.
Almost double.
It does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. It shows that you are ready to spend, and you see, a country that is prepared to spend. The question is, where are you spending the money to? I mean, which sectors of the economy are you going to spend the money? And so we open up our budget deficit, which calls for financing. And obviously, financing, you have to look at external and then internal. And if you look at, the budget carefully, you realize that we splitted the financing 50-50. 50% from, external and then 50% domestic. So there's kind of, squeezing of funds within the domestic market. So the banks, you see, banks are comfortable to lend to the government.
Yeah, safe.
And they don't incur much cost. Rather than lending to individuals that they'll be tracking the individuals
chasing them
and then, some of them, they can't find
bad
them.
Loans.
Exactly. So non-performing loans, recordings and all those. So if government give them the signal, and you see anytime budget is being read, these banks are sitting down watching. I mean, key indicators in there, that is, I mean, what is in there for me as a bank. They look out for that. And so they started diverting funds to the government, and government was borrowing, keep on borrowing internally. At the same time, too, we needed the dollars, because see, the borrowing that we have in Ghana highly concentrated in short-term instruments.
Yeah.
Even government bonds that we make noise about, it's maximum sometimes 5 years.
Yeah.
You see, it's recently that we try to move a bit further. But then, if you can borrow 15 years, external,
it gives you some room.
It gives you some breathing space, and every economic manager will be tempted to do that. And so we started borrowing from the external market as well. And, with these two together, the domestic market, you are crowding out, the private sector in terms of, access to funds. And then the external market, you are compiling your debt. And the rate at which we're increasing our debt was even more than the interest payment. And in economic relationship, when the rate at which you are borrowing is going above the interest you are paying, you should know that you're heading towards a disaster. In a worst case, there should almost be a par. But then the moment it goes above it, then it becomes a problem. So at a point where we're supposed to realize that, look, we've borrowed to a point, we're supposed to end it there. We didn't. Then we kept on borrowing. And you see, sometimes we look at the personality behind, the management. The finance minister has a background, which is investment banker.
Yeah.
It makes him aggressive. Those people are risk takers. I mean, they don't care when I'm going all out, whatever happens, I care who. And it's an attitude, it's inbuilt in them. It's innate. That is why they're able to grow into that, professional, investment banking. There are some people which by nature, they are conserved, which fits into their management skills. I don't want to see more debt on my books. And so when they are borrowing, they are careful. So effectively that fed into, our borrowing as well. And the point in time that we went to even borrow, we had to do Kenke party, which effectively, tells you that yes, we're aggressive borrowing, you see. But when we are borrowing, it has to turn around situations, because, now we are increasing, we are introducing taxes. Yeah. We are increasing taxes. That tells you that when you borrow and you don't put the money into areas that can pay back, this money, it ends up, affecting your citizens, because it's your citizens that will come and pay the money. Yeah. And if you look at the prospectus that we parade for borrowing, the human resource you have is part of it. And taxes are built around human resource. Of course. They effectively, the lender knows that, okay, fine, in a worst case, you may have human beings who will be working and what?
They will tax them.
You tax them and come and pay me. So obviously, it becomes part of the collateral. So as myself and you sitting here, we are all collaterals of the state. Wow. Which, we should be careful. That is why if someone is in management and he's borrowing, we the citizens must question.
Yeah, we have a say.
Yes, we have a say, because at the end of the day, we are the shareholders of the country. We are the owners of the country, and we should determine which direction the country should go.
Okay.
So our thinking should feed into what? Policies. Because we fuel the economy. Now that they are taxing you here and there, you know that your after-tax income is going to go down completely, which will affect almost everything, your savings and all that, to a point where they are even going to, hold up your pensions. Then your future is also compromised as a result of, incurring those huge debts.
Okay.
So, we've borrowed for some time, and when you borrow for some time, it's supposed to make the citizens better.
Yes.
So
where is all the money that?
So when you go back to the citizens to go and you ask them money, they won't get worried through taxes.
Yeah.
But you see, it's a good question you've asked. Where did the money go? Anytime we are going to borrow, right? Because we're not able to determine exactly what we use the earlier borrowings for. So the first time we went to the Eurobond market, for instance, went there to borrow for that was 2007, and we went there to borrow for a purpose because we couldn't determine the purpose. So if you borrow, maybe you may want to build roads, you may want to put up infrastructure that's supposed to help your citizens. At the end of the day, you put the money in there, you are not out of corruption, right? There are a lot of leakages. But if you borrow 1 billion, right, the actual money that will go onto the project is going to be 250 million. The rest will be dissipated into the system, right, through corruption here and there. And this contract sales thing that recently somebody was nabbed on it, it has been in existence all this while. But just that it wasn't out, So those leakages, right, will reduce the money that is going into the project. So if the project is supposed to last for 15 years to pay back, you realize that they do road, and the road within 3 years, the road is also off again. You get it? That means that the funds that you borrowed, right, which if you are supposed to pay it for 15 years, the 3 years that the road is wiped off, how are you going to pay the money? Some projects also will be stalled because it started by the previous administration. Political regimes, we don't seem to appreciate the continuity of governance. So because, I did not negotiate for a particular loan that went into a particular project, if I come to power, I leave that project, I start my own. You see? So from where I sit, these are things that has, affected, our borrowing. Because normally you borrow to create asset. Borrowing, you are incurring a liability. So when you take a typical, national balance sheet, it's a liability. Use the liability to create asset, so that the proceeds from the asset will offset that liability. That is how, management is done. It is done at your personal level, right? Management. It is done at the, what we call it, the business level, and the same at the national level. You see, we form the microcosm of the economy.
Right.
You see, the macro economy. So, at the end of the day, that is what has affected, our, borrowing. So, every time we are going to borrow, in the prospectus, we indicate that we are borrowing to offset existing debt.
Wow. Robbing Peter to pay Paul is
exactly.
A recycle.
So, and the lender knows. The lender knows. Possibly that is why interest rate is not able to come down very well in this country. Because if I'm lending to you and you tell me that you are borrowing to go and pay off already existing debt, I will increase my interest. If a lender, external lender on the Eurobond market, or whoever is, lending to you, and you tell him that you are borrowing to offset existing debt, obviously he knows that you have problem. That is why you are coming to borrow. So the interest that you're supposed to pay will go up.
You're high risk, of course.
It's, of course, risk and return. And if the interest should go up, you see, let me tell you the intuition behind interest rate. What is happening is that if I know you cannot pay, I need to increase my ability to recoup my money as quick as possible. So if you are two people you are coming to borrow from me, and I know that you cannot pay, maybe my interest that I will be looking for will be around 50%, because within the next 2 years I'm supposed to get my principal back. 50%, 50%. But then alternatively, the other gentleman, I know that he has the ability to pay, so I may charge him 20%. Within 5 years, I'm supposed to recoup my principal back. That is the intuition behind it. So after I've retrieved my principal, then I start counting my interest, because when you default, my money is gone. That is how interest, loans are priced at the hit side, but it's not public, so people don't really know.
Yeah, because sometimes you ask yourself, why is the rich man who has the money is getting a lower interest rate, and the guy who is a startup needs the liquidity to inject in his business is given.
Who is dire in need of the money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that he should get some reprieve and get a smaller interest rate.
Right, fantastic. So depends on the source of the borrowing. So if there is government money and government has a policy which is supposed to build up startups, then obviously there's a policy behind the pricing of the loan. And so as a result of that, you can get lower rate as a startup. But if it's a purely commercial loan from bank, microfinance and all those, then obviously they may have to look at ability to pay, which the rich man has the ability to pay. And so you don't have to stress up so much pricing high. You can lower the rate, gradually he builds up and come and pay. The one that is starting up, the business has no records. He's not even keeping his books well. I mean, if you want to know the profit that he's making over the years to track what he's supposed to, he won't know. So obviously he's working in the dark. And
so is it the banks thinking that, okay, once they get their principal, even if they don't get their interest, maybe they've gotten their principal, so it will not be as bad as losing the principal and the interest?
Fantastic. So in loan delivery, we have what we call effective time to maturity of the loan. And then we have the maturity. There's always a difference. The effective time to maturity is when the bank or the lender is counting on how to retrieve his money, his principal. Within that period, if you run away with the loan, he's in trouble. So if a loan is 3 years, the first 2.5 years is when they are thinking of recouping their principal, whether it's an amortized type of loan or whatever. That's when they are trying to recoup. Then between the 2.5 years to the 3rd year, that is where they start counting their interest. At that point, when you run away with the money, they don't care. Because the principal that they are recouping, they are reinvesting somewhere. So effectively, of course, they are even giving it out as loans to another person, because it's a chain of operations. So if I take from you up to a certain point, I give it out as loans. So I'm also recouping interest from. So within that 2.5 years to the 3rd year, that is when the bank, sees that they are almost risk-free. So even if you run away with the money at that point, they don't really care. So our borrowing got to a point. And you see, when you get to that threshold, you must stop and take stock of your debt. In some cases, you ring fence the existing debt. Even if you want to go for another one, you make sure that the one you are going for, fits into project that can pay itself. And that was why I was happy some time ago. I think it was Setepe's time when he initiated that the SOEs, should be able to borrow on their balance sheet to make sure that they become responsible for their loans. They will get government backing, all right, but that is not going to be a full backing. If your cocoa board was borrowing at a point in time, it's recently that they've messed up with the recent market that they went to borrow. I think it was 7%, which is way, way high. What we knew was that cocoa board was borrowing around 2%. At the point in time, I was using it as a case study in my class, where even government of Ghana going to the commercial market to go and borrow, we are attracting interest rate of around 7%. And cocoa board was borrowing 2%. Cocoa board was operating within an umbrella of a state. That state, which is Ghana, is borrowing 7% interest. which of these two entities have credibility?
Yeah.
You know, Cocoa Board should have borrowed more than, at a rate more than what?
The country.
But because of what? Management and the way the cash flows are tied to the beans that are exported. I always say that the whites are always eating chocolate. They won't stop eating chocolate. In fact, they love the cocoa process more than we do. You know, how many people have taken Milo this morning in Ghana? But white man sit down every morning, he wants to take Milo.
Yeah.
He wants to buy chocolate.
Yeah.
You know, they repackage chocolate nicely. And when you are traveling, somebody will say, buy me Belgium chocolate.
Yeah.
But the cocoa is from here.
True.
And when you look at cocoa plant, every aspect of cocoa plant is medicinal.
True.
From roots all the way to the pods. The pod, the pod can be used for soap.
Yeah.
And then you the seed itself, and then you can even create juice from the within the pod, that slimy thing in there. You can create juice out of it. So, I mean, we have a goal that way. We are sitting on, but we are messing it up.
All right. This is the Lowdown here on GhanaWeb TV. I'm having a very interesting conversation with Professor Lord Mensah. We'll go for our first break. When we return, my focus will be 22 years down the line. How did we move from a HIPC country, which had almost its debts forgiven, and 22 years down the line, we are back to a heavily indebted country? Stay with us. We're back after this break.
Everyone needs the perfect snack to munch on during a fun moment.
Wow.
Enjoy the tasty McBerry Twist cupcakes, deliciously baked and packaged for a sweet treat. Premium quality cakes baked with love for all, enriched in butter and milk.
Yummy. Wow.
McBerry Twist cupcakes, simply irresistible. Try one today. This advert is FDA approved.
You're welcome back from the break. This is still the Lowdown on GhanaWeb TV. My name is Daniel Oduro. We're having a conversation about the economy and the state of Ghana's economy. Where do we go from here? Is Dr. Amin the man to turn things around? Ken Ofori-Atta had been in charge for 7 years, literally becoming the longest serving finance minister in the Fourth Republic. Not many are impressed by his track record, and Dr. Amin is supposed to be the man to turn things around. The next 9 months, 10 months, is he able to do that? Prof, you said the reshuffle has come a bit too late in the day, but let's look at Dr. Amin. Many say he's gone to the right schools. He's well qualified for the job. Their only fear is that there will be too little for him to do. Do you share in that opinion, or you share a different opinion?
Okay, so in economics and finance, we call something momentum.
Okay.
We use it in mechanics as well.
Okay.
I mean, when a certain system picks a direction, sometimes it's because of the weight.
Okay.
It's difficult to change the direction. Do you get what I'm saying? So that analogy is what I'm trying to use to answer your question. You see, the country has picked up a certain direction, which was set by Ken Ofori-Atta. And there's no way we can change that direction. Yes, because, you know, we are with the IMF.
Okay.
The IMF for the next 3 years, I mean, up to 2026, the dictate of our budget is in the IMF program.
So we have no wiggle room. We have nothing more to do.
We have wiggle room within the details.
Okay.
But then, unfortunately, Ken was focusing too much on revenue generation. But in the same IMF program, we have expenditure rationalization and expenditure cut.
Okay.
Which he wasn't looking at that. And I know for political reasons, he won't do that. Because if he cut expenditure, he may not provide the roads. You know, Ghana is in debt, right?
Yes.
But have you seen, you know, the road constructions that are going on? You ask yourself, will be out the Kausi dying.
You can cut the number of ministers and then and reduce
so
your expenditure.
That's I'm coming in.
Okay.
So the expenditure cut wasn't Ken's focus. He was more on revenue enhancement. So effectively, Amin Adam, even though the budget will be dictated by, you know, the IMF as expected of us, because they will come for review in June.
Of course.
And when they come, they expect you to make sure that you promise to increase your tax to GDP percent from 15% that we are doing now to to 18% by the end of the program, which on the average you're supposed to do 1% every year.
Yeah, for the next 3 years, yes.
Yes. So you ask yourself, we're talking about debt. So debt is supposed to make the citizens better. Now, these taxes that you want to increase, you are going to take it from the citizens
who are already burdened by
exactly.
too many taxes.
Were they better off when you're compiling the debt? No.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you face problems. That's why he's facing resistance on this street. Demonstrations here and there, and the renegotiations and all those, coupled with inflation going up, which is wiping out typical citizens' income at the end of every month. So effectively, he has nothing. He can't do much because the economy is already in a certain direction. What he can do is that maybe change the focus of revenue generation to expenditure cut, which one way or the other is a form of revenue generation.
Of course.
Because you want to spend and you don't get it, it's a savings for you indirectly.
Yeah.
So probably he may reorient his focus within the same IMF framework and then focus more on, expenditure cut. But then whether it will be politically wise to do that or not, I leave it for him. Because we are getting into election years.
Yeah.
The electorate want to see road. They want to see cheap compound.
Yeah.
They want to see, hospitals. They want to see, school blocks. They still want
typically it's in election years that we overspend.
Exactly. That is, so if expenditure cut, you can do it as a final. That's what I'm saying. He can't do much. Yeah, he can't do much. Because as we speak now, his hands are tied in the IMF program. And there's no way he can do anything. He's an MP,
Yeah.
Politically, he has to be on the ground working.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that. He has to be on the ground, otherwise he can lose his seat.
Yes. So, he can, he himself as a person. And you see, Ghana is not a place where, we can dissociate the personality from the policies and then the operations. And the normal circumstance, once we've set the tone for the IMF program, the technical men at the Ministry of Finance should be able to run affairs without even a minister for the next 9 months.
Okay.
But Ghana is not like that.
Yeah.
It's a winner-takes-all, country.
Yeah.
So the leader plays a major role in the allocations of what? Resources. So he can't do much. We're already in a certain direction. And as somebody will say, we're already in a motion. Already in motion. Once you're in a motion, you can't change, the direction. So we've picked the momentum. And momentum, once you pick it, is a straight course. It goes with your weight. And you can't change the direction. Usually like that.
If I were to explain to a novice that this is a country that 22 years ago went to HIPC under President Nkommo Wo Ho, where almost all its debts were forgiven. And 22 years down the line, this same country that had almost a clean slate to start from is back to a heavily indebted country. How do I explain that to a normal human being for them to understand how in 22 years you get a clean slate and you are back to where you were, and there are people who are even calling for us to go back to the HIPC? First of all, should we go back to HIPC? And secondly, how did we get here?
Okay, we can't go back to HIPC. I'll take the recent one because that's the earlier one that will come into my memory quick.
Okay.
We can't go back into HIPC because the type of loans that will call for HIPC is not the type of loans we are holding now.
Okay.
The loans that took us to HIPC were more or less government loans.
Okay.
That one, the government can sit somewhere through their parliamentary approval.
And say they're forgiving you.
They're forgiving you.
But this one you owe individuals who have bought papers.
Debt forgiveness does not mean that. It goes with another condition.
Okay.
HIPC we went to, it was expected of us, right, that you have been forgiven your debt. Make sure the money you're supposed to use for your debt is a condition.
Okay.
You use it to improve the lives of the citizens.
But that's not
Hold on. So that's how it is. It is expected of you.
Yes.
So that you don't come back to borrow again.
But that's something the government should do
even if you are coming to borrow. That you see, they won't just forgive you your debt like that. They will forgive the debt, but then on condition that you are using the money to better the life, so that you don't come and borrow again from us.
Yes.
But unfortunately, when we went into HIPC, we did some few things. I mean, there was improvement. I can tell you some of the roads that we constructed.
HIPC roads.
Were HIPC roads and all those.
We named some of the highways after some of the
exactly,
countries.
which was, I mean, somehow good, because it has come to better lives. But then, the market also did not help us. Why? When we went to HIPC and then we've used the HIPC money, of course, the HIPC money through corruption and other things, not all of them will go into, the project as expected. So if you're supposed to pay $2 billion and they tell you that keep the $2 billion, use it to build classrooms, I mean, corruption will eat some of the money, and then the rest will go. At least we got something out of it. I won't dispute that. But then, how to sustain, this trajectory? Because the HIPC will be of a period. After we went to the HIPC, and then, we're talking about 2000 thereabout, and then we just came out from the HIPC, tried to put infrastructure to make the citizens better. Then quickly the Eurobond market surfaced. Okay? Because in a normal circumstance, after the HIPC, we were supposed to roll out policies that would sustain, our, dependent on ourselves. So we're not borrowing again. And it's like, we're supposed to roll out policies. And some of them are export-oriented policies. And export-oriented policies will bring you dollars. You see? Because when you go and borrow out there, you bring in dollars, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at the point in time, we went to the Eurobond market 2007. And that was when most of the African countries that went for the HIPC, also went to that Eurobond market. So we were not fortunate. I would say fortunate. It's the dynamics of the world. We got to a point where, the HIPC came to tame out, the economy. Things were improving, right? So every lender is prepared to lend to us. Then we went to the, the Eurobond market. So the market opened up for us. And you see, I always say that the Eurobond market has come to harm African countries. I've done a research on it. You can Google it online. Okay. It has come to harm African countries in the sense that, see, when we came out from HIPC and replacing the HIPC with export-oriented policies, instead of replacing HIPC with export-oriented policies, then Eurobond came in. So we shelve our export-oriented policies. And Eurobond monies are easy money. They are monies that you package yourself as a country, you go there through exchange of bidding and pricing and then interest rate, you fix the rate, money comes. So most African countries replaced the borrowing on the Eurobond market with export-oriented, policies. So instead of them to go to the rudiment of economic management to make sure that the cocoa farmer who is sitting somewhere at my village, Achim Takrasi or Akimoda, would, get the incentives to produce more cocoa so we can export. Instead of establishing a university purposely for cocoa, right? Then, putting in more investment to do cocoa research, because if you leave me alone, cocoa, when you take out these, our gold and all those, cocoa is supposed to be next thing. Yeah. And for which all the trees at Legon should have been cocoa. All the trees at your backyard should have been cocoa. One way or the other, anybody that comes into the country knows that this country is what? Cocoa rented. And so we replaced, these export-oriented policies with borrowing. Okay? To a point where we started managing our exchange rate with Eurobond inflows. So anytime you realize that, we are going for Eurobond, then the CD becomes, calm.
That's true.
And when the Eurobond comes, we are happy and life goes on.
That's true.
You see, that was what was happening. You see, when you can't sustain that.
But we could still have done this export-oriented economy you talk about and still...
That is why I said the economic managers of Africa became lazy. Getting export-oriented policies, you have to invest more. Your time, and then you also have to build capacity.
They didn't want to do that.
I mean, who would do that? When there's an easy money to tap into the system.
But they should have known that it's not sustainable.
I mean, economic management influenced by political dynamics. We are in a hurry. So within 4 years, I must make sure that this thing is in place, this thing is in place. But should I wait for cocoa farmer who is sitting somewhere to train him 4 years before he can produce for me? No. So there are so many factors that drives where we find ourselves in now, which you may have to attribute to the person behind, the management of the economy, and then also the global dynamics.
Isn't the corruption a bit more on the upscale? Because you see, true as it may be, you still cannot see the development in the magnitude that you want to. With all the borrowing, with all the debt forgiveness, you would have expected that this country would have a semblance of a developed or developing country. But there's poverty, so much poverty in the country, and you can't see what the monies have been used for.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you expect that once you borrow, there will be development.
Yes.
But we borrow to grow the economy. You borrow, you grow the economy, but it does not transform into economic development.
Okay.
And the reason being that when you borrow, government spends. And government spending, business spending, and then individual spending builds up the economic output. So you realize that will be recording GDP growth of that. And the politicians knows it. That when I brag of my GDP growth of that GDP
but the money is not in the pocket of the citizens.
Yes, but the question is, your citizens, that growth that you are talking about, has it transmitted into their doorstep?
Exactly.
That is where we have the economic development. So government will be spending to provide free SHS. That's the most recent one that will be in memory. Capitation grant. I mean, protecting the vulnerable here and there. But you see, those kind of developmental policies don't last with the people. Usually, developmental policies, when I provide you food to eat to go to school, right? Just providing the food alone, it does not end there. The question is, when you eat the food, what are you able to do with it? So that I don't come back to give you food again. But we are not, looking at our development in that direction. We are looking at our development that, government says I've spent money to give for capitation ground. Then it will be in the budget. Then you pick the budget, you see the sequencing of all the social, protection, policies. You realize, government says I'm doing school feeding. Give money. And it will tell you I've spent 200 million Ghana cedis on school feeding. But the question is, the child that you gave the food to, I mean, how many of them have been to school? At what point would they be self-dependent? That is development.
Because you can't sustain feeding them in perpetuity.
But
you agree that we spend a lot of our money on consumption?
Necessarily. That is what is happening. See, when you're doing school feeding program, when you're doing free SHS, it's something that you cannot sustain. It's part of the developmental plans, but treat it as an intervention, which at a point in time, you're going to stop.
Of course.
And when you stop, by the time you stop, the people should be able to continue. So you're providing free SHS. How long are you going to do that? I'm doing that now because I know a lot of parents cannot pay. How am I going to do that in tandem with making sure that there will be a point where that parent will get a job to do? That I scrap up the free SHS, then he can take care of the child. But we don't do that.
Is it that
we want to make it permanent?
You, as a lecturer,
not for political reasons. That is what wins the vote. It's like our roads. Roads are supposed to be privatized by now, as we speak.
Dr. Bamiyan says he's going to do that.
It's supposed to be privatized
and that's where we've
It's long overdue.
He says he's going to do. You think it's a good idea?
But I don't think he'll be able to do it because that is where the politician flexes his muscle.
Why wouldn't he be able to do it?
He flexes his muscle because he will tell you that I'll give you this road to win your vote.
He says that we need to privatize it. That government must not be able to do everything. So privatize it, toll it.
That is way long overdue. Way long overdue.
But at least now he says he wants to do that.
Let's wait to see what happens.
But you don't believe that he can?
A point in time where he realized that my vote will be coming from allocation of those roads, he will be in charge.
But do the citizens care who is giving them the road as far as they have good roads and it is tolled?
Of course, when the private man comes to give you the road, you will pay. And the price will be different from what
would you have that pays. Or have your roads very bad, your shocks?
It depends on you, how you analyze it. Because as an individual in my personal economy, having a good road and paying 5 Ghana cedis for my, Highlander.
Yeah.
I would prefer that than, driving on a bad road and buying shocks and wasting time with this mechanic who don't treat us well because they don't understand anything,
So maybe in certain parts of the country, like in Accra, other places, you see the private sector,
fantastic.
but maybe other places.
I've done some work on public roads and all those allocations, and it's a course I did in Canada.
Okay.
You see, there could be public roads, no problem. Let me give you a typical example. We're looking at somebody who wants to move from the eastern part of Accra, I'm coming from Kita, right? And then I want to hit the western side of Accra. So looking at where I live, Western Small, and continue to, what do we call it? Takrady. Now, La Paz, Awoshi, you can name them, those traffic hot zones.
Yeah, Malam.
You see, if I get an investor who says, I want to construct a ring road, bypass Accra. So when I hit, it goes to Ashaman, down the Blue Hills, all the way up down there, and then it opens up on the Winneba Road, right? Straight on you go to Takrady. It won't take you more than 30 minutes to join back the main road to Takrady. That's a typical commercial one.
Yeah.
So when you are, applying this road, you pay, and you pay commercial rate. Okay, the public one, which is La Paz one, to be in the traffic and then you sweat yourself up. You can be on it. Who cares about it?
It's free.
Yes, it's free. That one, it can be free. Of course, taxpayers' money will renovate it and all that. But then this one is a typical one. And Argentina has done that. Canada has done that.
Legon has done that.
Yes. Let me give you a
So you use Ukpongolo is free if you want to use the...
That is your own problem. You go and pay.
Yeah.
You see, we've gone beyond, just, what do we call it, government. But like I said, that is where the politician flexes his muscle. He tells you, okay, on a campaign platform, I will give you this road. And the people say,
do it well. You don't do it well.
You see, that is what is happening.
Wow.
Yes. But then I think it's about time we do the commercialization of roads.
Did you
critical roads,
Did you listen to Baumia's lecture, his vision? What are some of the good things you think are in there that, if implemented, whether him or another party, would be good for this country?
Well,
he talks about scrapping some of the taxes.
I get worried, on some of the deliveries, in a sense that if he has something to do, he should do it now.
He says it's a mate.
No, you see, the economic cost, right? The economic cost of the current tax regime, right? Which is so inconsiderate to businesses, individuals, right? It's so huge that if you wait till 2025 to introduce your flat rate, the benefit that we're supposed to get from the flat rate will be far, far lesser than the cost that will be created within this period.
Okay. And
even because tax inconsistencies has been a problem with this current administration. Remember, they anchored their campaign promise on nuisance taxes.
Right.
So when they came in their first budget, they removed some taxes.
True.
Now, go back. The same year, they reviewed the budget, they brought in some taxes.
True.
Now, if you're a businessman and you are sitting down, you want to invest in our environment, will you be happy with this tax going
and coming
in and out and all that? No, you don't know when
it's
next
not predictable.
time. Very, very unpredictable. So you won't know your after-tax, returns or profit. So effectively, you will relax. And it's going to be economic cost to the state. Because instead of you attracting businesses to come in, that you can tax them more, your behavior in tax management is scaring them away.
True.
It's a cost to us. True. And Cote d'Ivoire will be attracting them. Togo will be attracting them. So it's going to be a cost to us. So if you have a policy that is going to help the nation, why don't you introduce it now? Then you wait for it to create cost, huge cost.
But you say we're under IMF and these things...
IMF is calling for enhancing tax policies to generate more revenue.
Okay.
So, I mean, IMF will not tell you introduce flat tax rate. Once you're able to meet that 1% increment, they don't define how you implement your policies.
Okay. So they won't
But
tell
then-
you the how.
No, how they won't tell you. But then the target,
Okay.
that's what you are
So
dealing
you need
with.
to justify
them on.
that this is going to increase.
Exactly. So the economic cost of the current tax regime is so huge that when he comes to introduce his flat rate, it won't help us. That's why I'm saying you should do it now.
But he needs to convince the president to do it then, because he.
Well,
cannot do it.
that is his problem. He's part of an administration, and that analogy of being a classmate, being a mate, I don't buy into it, because a driver must trust his mate, isn't it? Because if you can't pick anybody that you don't trust to be your mate. What about if he runs away with the money? And if a driver, you don't get a good mate to make good sales for you.
Yeah.
Your car owner will take his car,
Yeah.
and we are the car owners. So if you are not making good sales, we'll take our car.
So you don't buy that agreement?
No, I don't buy it. If you want to do something, do it now. I mean, that's what will happen. See, in economics, delay sometimes is a cost. Delay can be beneficial, but in current regime, the economic cost of the taxes that we have been introducing and changing here and there is so huge that by the time he brings his flat rate, the number of people who cannot import cars anymore.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly. So, I mean, you don't wait for the mess to be created. Other than that, when you can't be effective.
Okay.
No. It can't be effective.
Can we turn around this economy in the next few years, do you think?
Oh, we can. Why not?
We think so?
We can. Economic is a cycle. Every economy goes through cycle. Unfortunate thing is that, in our case, for political reasons, we find it to accept that we are in a dip.
Yeah.
Yesterday, right? Japan announced that they are in a recession.
UK announced that they were in a recession.
UK has also announced that they are in a recession. We have been in recession since.
The managers say if UK and Japan are in recession, then we not be in recession is not news.
It won't be a news, but have we accepted it? You
But
see,
the reality suggests
the
so.
political manager will never announce that they are
In
in a
recession.
recession. No.
For political expedience.
Yes, but we need to accept it. When you accept that you are in a recession, it's about 50% into the solution.
Okay.
And every economy goes in that direction. We go in cycles, right? And the intuition behind the cycles, ups, downs, is that when you're up, right, you take decisions that are harsh because you're out there, you are making money, and you're happy. Things are okay, you get a job to do. But then after some time, you take more risk. Is it like what we're doing out of the HIPC? Then we started borrowing. The speed at which we were borrowing, happy. Then, now we find ourselves down here. You have to realize that you are down.
Yeah.
And when you realize that you are down and you announce it to the people appreciate it. So when you go for them for taxes, they're happy. When you go for, whatever measures or steer measures you put in place, they will help you to come out of it.
Right.
But then, if you don't announce it and you portray as if things are okay, go to IMF, you don't want to go. Then the next moment you are there. You create a lot of uncertainty in the minds of the people, and then the businessman here and there. So they will end up, squeezing you, even if you genuinely you're supposed to squeeze them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
your time. It's been a good education on the show.
You're
My
welcome.
name is Daniel Oduro. It's been another exciting edition of the Lowdown here on GhanaWeb TV. I hope you picked up some lessons and learned a few things from Prof. Prof is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. He's also a visiting lecturer at the GIMPA Business School, very big on economics in our country. Speaks at length. It's been very clear. His clarity of thought is admirable. We're back another time with another edition of the show. Until then, it's bye for now.